Welcome everyone. Today we're going to learn Parshas Vayigash. So the Parsha starts, Vayigash of Yehuda. Yehuda approaches Yosef and he's making a plea for Binyamin, and he starts by talking about everything that happened, the review of everything that happened from the perspective of his father. Then he says like this, Lakachtam gamazeh mimpana, he's quoting Yaakov. If you take Binyamin from me, v'kro osain, and something happens to him, v'iradatem esevosi b'ra sha'ola, you will lower my old age with calamity into the grave. And then he continues, and he says, now if you're not going to give us Binyamin, and we're going to come back, he's going to see that Binyamin is not there and he'll die. Then we, your servants, are going to lower our father's old age, with anguish. So one pasuk he says, he's talking about calamity, and then he's talking about anguish. So we have to know, why does he change this? First he says bara, and then he says biyogai. Now what did Yaakov really say? So what Yaakov really said, Yaakov said, Vayomer lo yered b'ni imachem, ki achiv meis, v'ulevad nishar. I'm not going to send him because Yosef is dead, and he's the only one I've left. And then v'krosem b'derech v'yiratem esevasi b'yagoin sh'oila. So Yaakov said b'yagoin. When Yehuda quotes Yaakov, he says b'ra, not what Yaakov said. But then afterwards, when he says, now, if this is going to happen, and you're going to send us back without Binyamin, then we will lower his old age into his grave with anguish, b'yagad. Why is he doing this? Why did he change what Yaakov said? And why is he saying separately, b'ra, b'yagad? Okay, so let's go back to the first pasuk. Vayigash elav Yehuda, vayomer, and he said, Bi'adoini, Yidabru na'avdecha davar b'aznei adoini, let me say something to you. You shouldn't be angry at me, because I consider you like parai. Rashi says, that he spoke to him harsh words. You are considered to me a melech just like Paro, even though you're only the vice president, you're only the Mishnah melech, but to me, you're chashiv like a melech. Maybe because of all his power, you're chashiv like a melech. But he spoke to him koshos. What does koshos mean? He spoke to him harsh words. Does this mean that he raised his voice? Does it mean that he glowered at him? Does it mean that he was belligerent? What does it mean, koshos? What do these words koshos mean? So let's go back to Parshas Vayera. In Parshas Vayera, it says, Vayigash Avram, means after the Malachim left, they're on the way to Sdom, and Avram goes out and he davens, he pleads for Sdom. Maybe it'll be 50, maybe 45, maybe 40, maybe 30. That's what it is. So he goes through a whole series of requests or prayers. So Vayigash, Rashi says, it means that Vayigash elav motzinu hagosha lemilchama. Says Vayigash Yoyav is hagosha lemilchama. And then we find hagosha means lepius. Shenamar Vayigash elav Yehuda. And we also find Hagashal Tefillah Vayigash Eliyahu Hanavi. L'chol el nichas Avram meant to do all three: milchama, pius. That means with the Rebbeinu Shalom Kaviyachol, he's going to do battle with the Rebbeinu Shalom Kaviyachol. So he wants milchama, pius, and tefillah. And Rashi says, L'chol eil nichas Avram came, was approaching to do all these three things. L'daber koshois, ulefius, uletfilah. The three things that he wanted was to be koshois, pius, and tefillah. So we know that when he's talking to Rebbeinu Shalom, koshois is not loud voice and harsh. It's not belligerent. It's not a glowering face. What does koshois mean? When he's talking to Rabbi Shalom, he's doing battle with the Rabbi Shalom. He's speaking to him koshais. So I think these three things can be explained by what the Rambam says in the Meira in the second to last parak. I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago. The Rambam says, what's the difference between chesed, tzedakah, and mishpat? Chesed is something that you don't have to do. Completely optional, voluntary. You don't have to do it. Tzedakah means it's the right thing to do. And mishpat means you have to do it. So what he's saying over here, that Avram started l'daber koshais. He started with mishpat. He says, you have to do this. Chalilu l'cha, he says, haftis b'tzadikim Russia. Are you going to kill a tzadik to go with a Russia? You can't do such a thing. If there's tzadikim, chalilu l'cha masadik davar zeh. This is koshais. Koshais means he's coming with a very powerful argument. He is with a tviyah. He's demanding from him, I want mishpat. This can't be done. This is koshais. Pius means it doesn't have to be, but this is tzedakah. Pius says tzedakah. I'm asking you, please, cajoling you to do it because it's the right thing to do. And tefillah, the third thing, tefillah is chesed. I'm just tachnunim. I'm just pleading. I don't have a claim because it's mishpat. I don't have a semi-claim because it's tzedakah. Pure chesed. I'm asking you tachnunim. So these are the three things that he did. He started with koshais, which is mishpat. Then he went to tzedakah. And if you trace it, maybe a different time we'll show how it's all traced through all his arguments. But he starts with mishpat, and then he goes to tzedakah, and then he goes to chesed. These are the three things. So that explains what koshais means. Koshais means he came to him with a demand, a strong argument. Now, he wasn't yelling, he was polite, he wasn't belligerent, he was respectful, but he came with koshais. He came with mishpat. That's what he came to, mishpat. But there is a problem here. Because Rashi says, Vayigash Avram, that there's three things, Mulchama, Piyus, and Tefillah. So Mulchama, he says, because you see Vayigash Yayav went to Mulchama. Piyus, because it says Vayigash Alav Yehuda. So Yehuda was Piyus. Was he Piyus or was he Kashais? What's the pshat? What is this? It's a stira in Rashi. Here Rashi said Yehuda was Piyus, and here Rashi says Melamed Shadibil of Kashais. So let's look back to what we spoke about before. V'radatem esevasi b'ra she'oila. What is the ra? What is the ra? Rashi says, Achshav keshu etzli. Now when I have Binyamin with me, ani misnachem alimai. So I have Nechama on his mother, on Rachel. Bal Ochiv and on Yosef is missing. So I have Nechama because I have him. V'myamos, if he dies, it feels to me like they all died in one day. What is he saying here? He's saying like this. He's saying that it's not just emotional thing here. He's saying that there's a whole part of Klal Yisrael which is meant to come out of Rachel. Rachel brought certain koiches to Klal Yisrael that Leah didn't bring, and Leah brought other koiches, and all these together are the composite of Klal Yisrael. There's the chelik of Rachel. So Rachel died. Yosef died. If Binyamin dies, the whole chelik of Rachel is bottle, and this is the calamity, because Klal Yisrael will be handicapped. It will be incomplete. That's the raw. That's a terrible thing. It's a calamity. It's not just the human side that his son died, but he says it's going to come like everybody died. Binyamin was the only one that was carrying the torch of Rachel. Only Binyamin. If Binyamin dies, then Rachel is gone, and Yosef is gone, and Binyamin is gone, and that whole chelik of Klal Yisrael is gone. And Klal Yisrael will be missing a limb, or two limbs, I don't know. Klal Yisrael will be deficient. So that's the Ra. So when Yaakov said, V'yiradati esevasi b'yogon sh'oila, what was his anguish? It was more than the anguish of a parent that loses a child. It was the anguish of the third Av, the last and the greatest Av of Klal Yisrael, the Bechir Shabbat, and he's building Klal Yisrael, and his construction of Klal Yisrael, part of it is going to fall apart. That's the Ra, and that's what's causing him the Yagoin. I feel it's such terrible anguish that it was entrusted to him to build Klal Yisrael, and part of it is not going to happen. That is a terrible, terrible anguish, and that's why Yaakov said Yagoin. That's why he was upset. That's why he had this tremendous anguish, this tremendous Yagoin. Yehuda took these two things: the calamity of the damage to Klal Yisrael, and the anguish to Yaakov of seeing that the Klal Yisrael that he's building is going to be damaged. He took these two things and he separated them. So first he started with the calamity. I'll explain right away why. So that was a piyus. He's coming to he says Bi Adoini Yadaber Nachavd Ba'ozni Adoini. That's the language of piyus. He is cajoling him. He is saying, please, do something. Now, Yosef, as the effective king of Mitzrayim, has no obligation to be worried about the damage of a nation hundreds of miles away. It's not his problem. This is something, it's the right thing to do. It's tzedakah. It's a good thing that there's a nation there and it's building, and part of it is going to crumble. So it's tzedakah, but as king, you have no obligation to another nation. Why do you have an obligation to them? So this was piyus. This part was piyus. And he said, so there were two arguments here. The first part of the pasuk and the second part of the pasuk. The first part of the pasuk was piyus. The second part of the pasuk, when it says al yicher apcha bad abdecha, that was koshois, that was mishpat. So first he started with the argument of piyus, and then he started with of tzedakah, and then he went to the argument of mishpat. So the first argument is that he mentions first is there's going to be a calamity to Klal Yisrael. So I'm asking you, listen, it would be a nice moral thing for you to help out this other nation, but you really don't have to. It's not mishpat, but it would be tzedakah. But then he says another thing. Now he says, I'm adding now mishpat. Why do you say mishpat afterwards? He's saying that you're a king, and as a king has to be merciful. That's what a king has to do. Ei merachmim bedin. The bezdin paskins on somebody that you don't bring mercy into the court. You paskin whatever the law is. But the king can be merciful. The king can. He can pardon. The courts convict you, but then the president pardons you. The king has the ability to pardon, and he should pardon wherever it's appropriate. So that's mishpat. That's an obligation. So he's saying even if you don't want to do tzedakah, but the yagoin, my father is sitting, an old man sitting in Canaan, he's crying, his heart is broken. Have mercy on him. A king should have mercy. If you're a king, that's what a king does. A king has mercy. Now, why didn't he start with this? Because this needed a shtickle Torah. Because Yosef was not a king. Yosef was just the Mishnah Melech. So he says, Mishpat. Why am I asking for you Mishpat? Ki kamoicha keparoi. Because I look at you like a king. And and you want to argue with that? Okay, we'll discuss it. But I'm saying that you're a king. Now, it's debatable, so we can debate it. But I'm saying that you're a king. And you're like Paroi. If you are a king, then it's incumbent on you to be merciful wherever you have an opportunity to be merciful. So he started out with Rosh Oila Tzedakah, that's straight Tzedakah, that there's a nation that's part of it is crumbling. Tzedakah, you should help them. But even if you don't want to, now we're going to come to Mishpat. But Lamaisa, you have to do it because of Yagoin, because you have to have mercy, and the king has to have mercy, and you are a king. That's what he's saying to him. But Yaakov meant both. The Yagoin of Yaakov was for the Ra. Yaakov knew that they were Ra. He says, and it would be like all three died in one day. Yaakov says, look, everybody's dying. Rachel, Yosef, Binyamin, everybody's dead. What's going to be with that part of Klal Yisrael? That was the Ra that he saw, and that caused him the Yagoin. So to Paro, he says, you worry, first I want you to do it because of the Ra. But then he says, forget about what the reason of the Ra is, but of the Yagoin is, but there is Yagoin. There's an old man sitting there, and he's crying his heart out. Have mercy on him. That's what Yosef was saying to. That's what Yehuda. I get these names mixed up for some reason. That's why Yehuda. That's what Yehuda was saying to Yosef. Now, let's go a little bit further in the parsha. So Yosef reveals himself to the brothers, and he says, "V'yom Yosef alechav, ani Yosef, Ab Yosef, ha'oid avi chai." Is my father still alive? So the question is right away that in Parshas Miketz, in Parshas Miketz, yes, when they came back to get Shimon and to buy more food, so Yosef says to them, Hasholem avichem hazoken asher amartem aidenu chai. He asked them if he's still alive, and they said Sholem lavdecha avinu aidenu chai. So they told him already that he's alive. Why is he saying again Aid avinu chai? Why is he saying this? He knew the answer. They did not go back to Canaan in between. They didn't communicate. They didn't call on the phone. They had no contact with Yaakov from the time they came to Mitzrayim, and they told him that he's alive, and that's the latest information they had. So why is he asking, is he still alive? So there's a famous word on this, that this is really a rhetorical question. He's saying, you're worried about, you know, when you sold me, why didn't you worry that it's gonna kill my father? You worried that if it doesn't get Binyamin, but why don't you worry about me? Okay, but I'm going to go a different direction. The Gemara says in Soita, the Gemara says like this. Amrit stagnine paroi, Eved shel kocha rabbi be'esrim kesef tam shalani aleinu. You bought him for 20 shekel, and he's going to become king over us. I see in him gnuni machas. I see in him the ability, the talent to be a king. Amrullah, they said in Kenya, he should speak 70 languages. He should speak Shivim Lashon. If he's going to have such a high position, he should speak Shivim Lashon. So Yosef didn't know Shivim Lashon. He spoke Hebrew, which was Lashon Kodesh, which was the language of Canaan, as the Ramban says. And if you look at Canaanite inscriptions, it's practically Hebrew. I guess he spoke Egyptian. I mean, he's been years and years in Egypt, so he spoke Egyptian, but he didn't speak Shivim Lashon. So Bo Gavriel v'limdo Shivim Lashon. So he came and he taught him Shivim Lashon. Gavriel came, the Malach, and he taught him Shivim Lashon. Lehavik Gomar. So it didn't take. So then he added the letter Hey to his name. It says Eides B'Hois of Samai B'Tseisel Eretz Mitzrayim. Svasli Dati Eshma. So mainly he was able to hear to understand the Shivim Lashon. So later, when he wanted to take Yaakov back, so Paroi didn't speak Hebrew. He didn't speak Lashon Kodesh, which was an embarrassment for him. So he said, if you don't let me take Yaakov back to me, escort Yaakov back to Canaan, to the Maras Machpelah, then I'm going to tell people that you don't speak Hebrew. And that's a bizayon. We can understand why it's a bizayon for Paro, because Canaan was next door neighbor, so he should speak that language. He didn't. He didn't get it. So let's talk about Shivim Lashon. You have to speak 70 languages. How does a person speak 70 languages? Most people in America speak one or two languages. Yidden speak. I can speak Hebrew, Yiddish, and English. I learned French in high school, so I could speak, poor French. I learned, my parents used to speak Russian. They didn't want me to understand. And when I got a book, so I was able to speak, a poor Russian. And I learned Spanish because I felt I should know Spanish. And I have a functional Spanish. So I have 6 languages, barely 6 languages. 3 well, 1 not so well, and 2 poor. It's not easy. How can a person learn 70 languages? How? It's like, and why? Why does as you say, it's like a supernatural thing, but it's not. You see, the Paro's ministers told him that he has to speak 70 languages. So it's not supernatural. And it's a halacha. The Gemara says in Hedron, and Daf Yud Zayin, that Dayan has to speak Shivim Lashon. Why? Shelo yeh shemeim piyam turguman. If somebody comes into Bezdin, either the litigants or the Eidim, and the Dayan has to hear what they're saying, he should be able to understand what they're saying. He should not, he should not have to use an interpreter. So how do you expect the Dayan to speak 70 languages? What kind of halacha is that? And what kind of bittul Torah is that? Why in the world would he have to speak Tagalog and Vietnamese and Swahili and who knows whatever other languages there are? 70 languages. It's incredible. What does that mean? So Mordechai spoke Tursi because he spoke 70 languages. Did he speak 70 languages? No. Shivim Lashon does not mean 70 languages. Shivim Lashon is an idiomatic expression in Hebrew, which means foreign languages. The languages of the Goyim. The Shivim Mumayis are the Goyim. You have to speak Goyish languages. Which Goyish languages do you have to speak? The ones that are relevant. The ones that are relevant. If you're in New York, you have to speak English, Hebrew, Yiddish, Spanish, and maybe some Russian, and you don't have to speak French. Nobody's speaking French in New York. So that's what it means. Shivim Lashon doesn't mean 70 languages. It's an idiom. Idiom means something which doesn't translate well to another language. I was once talking to a man from Williamsburg, a very intelligent man, and he was talking about a certain person, and he tells me, he talks to the thing. What does that mean? He talks to the thing. Until I realized that he's translating the Yiddish. The Yiddish, you say, Eretze de Zach. That means he's on point. But he's, okay, Eretze de Zach, I'm speaking English. He talks to the thing. So he said, aha, now I know what you mean. You mean he doesn't bang on a teapot, which means, haknish kan chainik. So, and on the other hand, what does it mean? It means he's on point. If I would it's also an idiom. If I would say that he talks on point and transfer that to Yiddish and eret auf den Spitz, what does that mean? It means nothing. My brother-in-law is from Belgium. He speaks excellent English, but he's not American. He's from Belgium. So one time he tells my sister, what kind of a country is this? I just read in the paper that 2 people went into the mayor's office and chewed his ear off. What kind of country is this? So you cannot take idioms and translate them literally and expect them to preserve their meaning. They don't. So Shivim Lashon is an idiom. Why did Mordechai speak Torsi? Because it was a province in the Persian Empire. Well, it was like 100, 200 miles away. So he spoke it because, sometimes tourism come around, so he spoke it. Paro spoke Shivim Lashon. He spoke Libyan, he spoke, Ethiopian, whatever, but he didn't speak Hebrew. It was a bizarre for him because the king of Egypt, who has a big empire, should be able to speak the languages of the neighboring countries, and he couldn't. So Yosef had to learn Shivim Lashon, means he had to learn the relevant foreign languages. That's what he had to learn. That's what it means. So let's talk about Oid Avichai. He says to them, Hasholem Avichem Azoken, is he at peace? Haidanu Chai, is he alive? Now, if he meant Haidanu Chai, if he's alive and not dead, then first he should say Haidanu Chai, is he alive? And then you should say Hasholem Loi, how is he? Is he at peace? First you ask at peace, and then you ask if he's alive? It doesn't make sense. So what does Haidanu Chai mean? Look in Parshas Shemais, when Moshe came to ask permission from Yisro to go to Mitzrayim, he said to him, El Chano Vashuva El Achai Mitzrayim. I want to go return to my brothers in Mitzrayim. Ve'era, I want to see Ha'oidom Chayim. What does that mean? That he wants to see if they're all dead? No. So what does Oidom Chayim mean? What does Oidom Chayim mean? Oidom Chayim is an idiomatic expression which means how are his spirits? How is he doing? Is he depressed? Is he happy? Is he fresh? How is he doing? That's what Oidom Chayim. So first he said, Hasholem Avichem Azoken. Is everything okay with him? Is he he's having no troubles? And now, how are his spirits? Oidom Chayim. Is he in good spirits? So they said, yeah, it's Shalom, and he's in good spirits. Now Yosef says, Ani Yosef. A stranger asks you, how's your father doing? Baruch Hashem, yeah? But Ani Yosef, I'm not a stranger, I'm your brother. Now tell me how my father's doing. Aida Vichai, how is he doing? Is he really in good spirits? Or did you just tell me Baruch Hashem? That's what he's saying over here. Aida Vichai. I just want to conclude with a small addendum to what we spoke about last week. We were speaking about Yosef, that he had to spend two years in prison because he didn't have bitachon, because he asked the Tsar Mashkim to remember him to Paray. And the question was, Ishtadlus, you have to have Ishtadlus. So I suggested that what he was asking from the Tsar Mashkim, he's asking Boy B'yom, he's asking him to do something very inappropriate at the party to ask this. Later, it's humiliating. So either what he's going to do is going to be either inappropriate or humiliating. Hishtadlus requires normal hishtadlus. This is extreme hishtadlus. So someone asked me a question, so what was he supposed to do? What else is he supposed to do? So I'd like to say, first of all, what is the purpose of hishtadlus? Why do you have to have hishtadlus? Why? So the Chinuch says that there's a mitzvah to bring eish min hahedyet. Even though it was eish in the first Beis Hamikdash, it was eish yarda min hashamayim on the mizbeach, but there's a mitzvah to bring eish min hahedyet. Why is there a mitzvah to bring eish min hahedyet? So the Chinuch says because to be mechased the nes. You don't want the nest should be a nest gola. You want to cover it. So bring eish min hahedyet, and the mice says eish min shemaim. So the nest is concealed. The wind blew before Kriyas Yamsov to be a little bit to be mechasa the nest. So the question is, how is that mechasa the nest? We'll speak about that in Parshas Vayigash. But that's what Hishtadlus is. It's not there to help the Rebbeinu Shleilim. It doesn't need your help. The Hishtadlus is to cover the nest. If you do nothing, then it would be clearly supernatural, that that not a shini ateva, but that the Rebbeinu Shalom is doing something very, very overt hashgacha. So you have to cover that with ishtadlus. You do ishtadlus, Rebbeinu Shalom gives you a bracha. Zeish yardim min hashemayim. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives you parnasim min hashemayim, and you do ishtadlus to cover the nest. That's the purpose of ishtadlus. And you have to do limited ishtadlus. Just do enough to cover. Why are you going to extremes? That's not needed. But if a person is in a burning house, so he has to run out, that's not ishtadlus. That's just common sense. Will save your life. The house is burning, run out. That's not ishtadlus. And let's say you can't get out the front door, then you can climb up to the next floor, break a window, and jump out of the window. That's what you have to do, even though it's extreme. When it comes to saving your life, there's no limit. You don't have to do anything normal. Do things that are extreme. You have to save your life. Yosef was not in sakana. Yosef was in prison. He was the man who was running the show. He was not in danger. He didn't have like it's sakana is going to die, so maybe I have to do anything desperate to do anything. No, he was in prison and he was okay. He didn't want to be there, but he was okay. So you have to have bitachon that the Rebbeinu Shalom will take you out. With what will be your ishtadlus when it happens, who knows? But right now you're not in sakana. It's not a burning house, so don't do anything extreme. And he did something extreme. He said, go to Paro and do something either inappropriate or humiliating, and that was too much ishtadlus. Thank you very much. I hope everybody had a nice Hanukkah, and I hope to see you again next week.